The story of Journey into Imagination is the story of Tony Baxter being told no a lot, until eventually they told him yes. It started in Disneyland in the late 70s. Tony Baxter was working on a new steampunk land called Discovery Bay. There was set to be a show in the Carousel Theater about an eccentric inventor and his pet dragon, called Professor Marvel's Gallery. Discovery Bay was cancelled, but Baxter still loved the jolly bearded fellow and his pet dragon. Another feature from Discovery Bay that stuck with Baxter through the years was the glass pyramids. When EPCOT was being built in the early 80s, he planned to use the glass pyramid structure for the Land Pavilion. His pitch included a suspended dock ride themed as hot air balloons, another unused concept from Discovery Bay, through different biomes of the world, featuring a Carousel Theater pre-show hosted by a jolly bearded fellow, the Landkeeper. EPCOT, especially at opening day, was very focused on sponsorships, both to help pay for the more extravagant rides, as well as to aid in the park feeling like a true, permanent World's Fair. The Land Pavilion was originally sponsored by Kraft, and Kraft is mostly known for making food, so they asked Disney to keep the Land Pavilion focused on food. Hence the food-themed musical show and the scrapping of the Landkeeper balloon ride in favor of one more focused on farming technology, for more food. Nearby, Kodak had agreed to sponsor the pavilion, and they weren't super picky about the theme as long as it was something creative. This gave Tony Baxter the chance to develop the Imagination Pavilion, featuring a 3D movie, an interactive exhibit, and most importantly, Journey into Imagination. Baxter was able to use his jolly bearded fellow with a pet dragon, the glass pyramids, some steampunk visuals, a carousel theater, and even an airship. The guests didn't get to ride in it, then it was more of a dirigible than a hot air balloon. I'm still counting it. Tony Baxter did have one last executive tell him no during this development. Kodak was concerned about the green dragon, since their main competitor, Fujifilm, had a green logo. So they quickly redesigned it to have a royal purple pigment. And then, eureka! You've got a Figment. Guests start their journey before even entering the glass pyramids, as jumping fountains and an upside-down waterfall set the whimsical tone. They then enter, board the ride vehicles, and quickly meet their hosts, Dreamfinder and Figment. The Dreamfinder travels the world collecting ideas and sparks of imagination that he can then take back to the Dreamport to use in the creation of all kinds of amazing things, like his partner, Figment, who is built out of pure imagination. The ride then takes guests through rooms based on literature, art, science, filmmaking, and more on an abstract, inspiring journey through creative landscapes accompanied by an iconic Sherman Brothers song, One Little Spark. The Carousel Theater-style turntable effect that is used for Dreamfinder's introductory scene was groundbreaking and incredible. As the cars made a large circle moving along the track, the center rotated in sync so the dirigible could always follow them. A similar effect is used today in Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, but with the technology of the 80s, it didn't work well and broke down frequently. Between the technical issues and the desire from Eisen to have something more trendy for the upcoming Millennium Celebration, this version of the ride was closed in 1998. But the characters of Dreamfinder and Figment struck a chord with guests, and to this day, Dreamfinder can still be found in merchandise, in comics, in Easter eggs, and fan petitions for his return to the ride. But for now, his journey into imagination has ended. When EPCOT opened in 1982, it was full of these grand e-ticket attractions that entertained and inspired, and the rides often touched on cutting-edge science and technology, and thus were intentionally designed to not be relevant for more than 10 to 15 years, with the expectation that corporate sponsors would pay for regular updates. The problem is, paying for theme park rides just so you can slap your logo on them is not as effective a marketing strategy as one might think, so things often weren't updated when they were supposed to. Journey into Imagination was the last original ride to not be updated, and with the Millennium Celebration coming up, it seemed like the perfect time to do it. There wasn't enough money for updates in Disney's budget since the theme parks were struggling financially after the failures of Euro Disneyland. Kodak was a sponsor of the pavilion, but at the time, digital cameras were starting to hit the market and camera phones were on the horizon, so Kodak wasn't exactly in a great financial spot either. But Disney gave Kodak an ultimatum that if they wanted to keep the working relationship with Disney, Kodak had to pay for the update to Imagination. Most sponsors would look at that ultimatum, laugh, and then walk away. But Kodak wasn't just a sponsor, they were also the official camera for the Walt Disney World Resort, which was a huge moneymaker for Kodak. I mean, can you even imagine going on a Disney vacation without your trusty disposable camera? So Kodak worked out a deal to pay for the update, but at a very reduced budget and with a request that Disney make the new ride more cool and hip. The problem here is that Disney didn't know how to be hip. Oftentimes, the attempts to be more relevant in the theme parks boiled down to just a celebrity cameo and a more cynical tone. So we're left with a long overdue update rushed for a special event done on an extremely tight budget and catering to corporate mandates to be more trendy. And if that's not a recipe for success, I don't know what is. The new version of the ride, Journey into Your Imagination, opened in 1999 and starred famed comedian Eric Idle reprising his role of Dr. Nigel Channing from the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience 3D movie. The ride begins with guests going through scanners that show they have a complete lack of creative thought. Dr. Channing takes them on a tour through the Imagination Institute filled with optical illusions to try and stimulate their creativity before one last trip through the scanners to see that now they are overflowing with imagination. Imagination is represented here by a guitar with the head of a human child. The redo was bland and boring, and it didn't just lack the charm of the original, it tore it out and actively replaced it with crap. Beloved characters like Dreamfinder and Figment? Who needs them? Come from the ride entirely outside of a small cameo. An inspirational and whimsical tone? Overrated! Let's insult guests to their faces!
As you can see, there's not much going on upstairs.
Fully realized sets and environments? Forget that action! The cool thing to do is to just get a dark warehouse full of blank walls and fill it with tiny random bits of stuff that don't connect to each other in any cohesive or stylistic way. The groundbreaking turntable scene? Not enough money to fix that. Let's rip it out, along with a large chunk of the track, so the new ride is literally half as long as the original. Fans hated this new version of the ride. Kodak hated this new version of the ride. Even Michael Eisner hated this new version of the ride. They kept it open for the Millennium Celebration and then quickly closed it in 2001. Journey into Your Imagination, the second version of the ride, was not well received. Disney knew it needed to be fixed, but the sponsor, Kodak, wasn't going to pay again so soon, so Disney had to pay themselves. The ride closed a year and a half after opening in August of 2001. The very next month, something happened that would kill the tourism industry for a few years and cause the already slim budget Disney had available for the project to be slashed even more.
I don't want to blame it all on 9/11, but it certainly didn't help.
The redo would only wind up having a budget of $8 million, which might sound like a lot, but Disney rides are pretty expensive. Toy Story Mania costs 10 times that, and the majority of that ride is essentially a fancy version of We Play. To save on costs, they had to salvage as much as possible from that second version. The Imagination Institute framing device worked nicely, and it fit the themes of that era of EPCOT well. Eric Idle's performance as Dr. Nigel Channing was well received, and the experienced comedy actor was easy to work with. While many of the effects were underwhelming, a few of the optical illusions were very charming and just needed some minor touch-ups. The disappearing butterfly effect has become a standout scene, and the upside-down house was a fun visual. That's about it that could be saved, but that's enough for a solid foundation. Something was still needed to give the ride some much needed fun, energy, and excitement though. It needed Figment. The goofy purple dragon from the original version of the ride made his grand return, but with a few changes. He was no longer the result of Dreamfinder's sparks of creativity, he is now a discovery of Dr. Nigel Channing and the Imagination Institute, and his personality shifted from wide-eyed childlike wonder to more of a mischievous rascal and a foil for the more straight-laced scientist. With new character dynamics in place and plans to refresh what was already there as much as possible, the new ride was born. Journey into Imagination with Figment. Nigel Channing is taking guests on a tour of the Imagination Institute to demonstrate how the five senses can stimulate the imagination. But Figment intervenes and causes some chaos throughout until eventually Nigel and the guests learn that imagination isn't something to classify into neat little boxes. It's about turning your thinking upside down and setting your mind free from logic and order. It's still not a perfect ride, most of the effects are still pretty simple and cheap, and the Nigel Channing moon face is terrifying. But this was a big improvement over the second version. It wasn't planned as a permanent solution though. This was meant as a placeholder until a major update could restore it to its former glory, with a 4th edition that matches the scale and charm of the original as a part of the Project Gemini refresh of EPCOT in the mid-aughts. Although Project Gemini never actually happened and the major EPCOT overhaul has been perpetually pushed back, there have been a few pitches for replacing the Journey into Imagination over the years, but nothing ever came into fruition. Figment himself has really become the mascot for EPCOT as a whole in recent years though, showing the value of this ride and these characters. The Imagination Pavilion was featured on the EPCOT model in the preview center in late 2019, which seemed to tease a new version was on the way, but that was never officially announced, and with the COVID-19 pandemic, much of the EPCOT refresh has been pushed back or cancelled. There's been some other teasers by Imagineers recently though, which seem to imply that there are big plans for Figment in the future. Although for now, our story ends with Eric Idle's reaction to people on Twitter making fun of him for not remembering who Figment is. trend with Disney across the 80s would be to create educational tapes using their characters, usually with the animation outsourced to a small studio to save money. One of these educational series that Disney made was called Language Arts Through Imagination. They made 11 total, each about 10 to 15 minutes long, starring Figment. The tapes were available exclusively to schools, and because of that, these VHS tapes are incredibly rare, especially since Disney charged a premium price for their educational content, so not too many schools ever actually bought them. They were $350 each. Adjusting for inflation since 1988, that would be $773.91 per video. With them being 15 minutes max, that works out to over $50 per minute of video in today's currency.
Money, please.
Most of the show was live action, with different kids on a simple set that was just a large room with a divider in the middle. Figment himself was animated, but very cheaply, with most shots having him standing still other than his wildly flapping mouth that barely matched the words he was saying. For most of it though, Figment was off camera and just a voice, so they didn't need to animate him. There was also a lot of reused clips from different Disney movies. Enough that at times it almost feels like these tapes were made purely so Disney could advertise the films directly to kids inside of schools.
Money, please. Money, please.
But there was some cute ideas here, it wasn't a total cash grab. Each episode saw the kids struggling with some concept, and Figment teaching them some form of critical thinking or reading comprehension skill. One episode discussed how some colors can make you feel a certain way. Another taught kids the importance of brainstorming. Though these lessons were simple, the focus being more on setting up a lesson for the schools rather than actually teaching it. There were 2 special episodes that featured other Disney characters in lead roles alongside Figment. One with Alice from Alice in Wonderland and another with Peter Pan, and wait, why is he an adult? Alice was a kid. Why is Peter a grown man? Did Figment just help him kidnap a little girl? Should I call the police? No, Peter! Bad Peter! Why are you outside the bedroom window? Don't wink at the camera! Ugh. Anyways, there was one episode, Will You Eat a Blue Potato, available online found by a site called Figments Imagination, although the site has since been taken down and the URL now takes you to what appears to be an Israeli parking garage cleaning company? But the other 10 episodes appeared to be gone for good until in 2018 when an extremely low quality and tough to understand version of the Peter Pan episode was uploaded to YouTube from a damaged film reel. And then a user of the WDW Magic fan forums discovered an unlisted YouTube playlist that contained 9 of the 11 episodes in high quality. The playlist was by a channel named TTJohn12 and was only unlisted to keep it from getting copyright struck. Yet things seem to be safe now. These tapes were on loan to a university library and were recently rediscovered and uploaded. About a month later, the publicity from the discovery of much of the series prompted another YouTuber, Dragon Roboto, to realize he had the 2 missing episodes. He uploaded them, and with that, the entire series is finally available for anyone to see, for better or for worse. Now make sure you subscribe to this channel, or else Bob Chapek will replace the Imagination Pavilion with another Frozen ride. Let it go. Let it go, there's no more Figment inside.